Cool. Hope you guys already heard a lot about the BOS. And hopefully this talk is going to reinforce this concept a bit further and also talk about what we're doing on the protocol level to actually support the BOS. For people who don't know me, I'm Bowen, head of protocol at Pagoda. And today I'm going to talk about protocol innovations powering the BOS. And if you missed Ilya's talk on what the BOS actually is, don't worry, this is one slide refresher. So the blockchain operating system, aka the BOS, is a common layer for discovering and browsing open web experiences that is compatible with all blockchains. So it goes from the compute layer, where we have blockchains like Near and Ethereum, up to the data platform, where people can get access to data, to the discovery layer, where people can have access to front end that give rise to all the experiences like search, recommendations, chat, and discovery, and all of that. So since Near protocol, as Ilya said, is one of the core to the blockchain operating system, I'm going to talk about how the protocol actually supports the BOS. So first of all, on the high level, there are several defining features of Near protocol that make it a very good solid foundation for the blockchain operating system. First of all, the protocol is very simple. By that, what I mean is that it is simple for both end users and developers to use. And this is very important because without an easy-to-use blockchain, without being able to make it easy for developers to write smart contracts for users to interact with blockchain, no one would actually come to the blockchain ecosystem. And if that's the case, you can build the best blockchain in the world, the most performant one, but that doesn't really help. So this simplicity and usability is what we prioritize the most. And once it is usable and you have people coming to use it, it is also important that the blockchain is secure so that people can trust the blockchain with your asset. And finally, it's very important that the protocol is scalable, especially because we're aiming to get mass adoption, get to 1 billion active users. We have a goal of achieving 10 million monthly active users by the end of 2023. And that number is only going to go up in the upcoming years as well. And we want to make sure that the protocol is scalable enough to support that, to make sure that the user experience don't degrade, and also the transaction costs remain low. So with that high-level description said, I want to dive into a specific segment to look into how the protocol actually support the blockchain operating system in a more concrete way. So here we're going to take a deeper look at the onboarding experience that comes with the BOS. But before we do that, it is important to first take a look at how the current onboarding experience looks like. We're using Near here as an example. So usually, the experience for new users is that they land in a wallet because that's how they learn about Near. Or they're trying to use an app and it gets redirected to a wallet because they don't have an account and then they cannot actually use that app. Then the next step is that they would try to create an account and realize that they actually need to get Near token first. Now, there are actually several different ways people can do this. Some wallets support in-app purchase through credit cards and things like that, but others don't. And in those cases, people usually get tokens from centralized exchanges or a friend who is willing to support them. And after they go through that step, they can finally create an account. And after that, they can finally go back to the app that they want to try in the first place and start using it. And while this experience I'm describing is based on Near, it is not actually unique to Near. It is more or less a paradigm that people have taken for granted at this point in the Web3 space. And I think at this point, people really actually question whether there's something better we can do or whether there's something we should improve upon that. But I think just as Hasib said in the panel before me, that is actually very difficult for people who are not familiar with Web3, right? If you're just a regular TikTok user, you get exposure to Near through like some kind of TikTok video and you want to give it a try, it's very likely that you go through this complicated onboarding experience and you just drop off in the middle because it is indeed quite difficult. So what do we think is actually the ideal state? It's actually pretty simple. This is just nothing fancy, and is what we borrow from what a lot of Web 2 apps today do. So usually the flow is that you learn about a Web 2 app, and you think it's interesting, you decide to give it a try. So you just open the app and pretty much start using it right away. You may, at some point later, decide to pay for it, but that's, at least in the onboarding experience, that's not the case. So that sounds very simple, but why are we not able to do that in the Web3 space? At least in the context of Near, there are two main obstacles. One is that users have to pay for transaction fees in Near, and two is that the users have to have Near in their account to pay for the storage. And those two things combined means that a user cannot not have any Near and start interacting with some application that's built on top of Near. And those two obstacles that I described are pretty fundamental to the protocol itself. While there may be ways to optimize that on the app layer, it is likely not going to be perfect because those constraints are placed by the protocol itself. And while that is somewhat unique to Near, other protocols impose similar constraints, maybe in other formats. And I think that's a reason why the onboarding experience in Web3 today generally is not as good as what it can be. So what is our solution in the context of the blockchain operating system? On the protocol level, we are developing two features. One is called meta-transactions. This is a feature that allows third parties to pay for the transaction of a user, and that third party is usually an app. And the second feature is called zero balance account. It means that under certain conditions, a user do not need to maintain any minimum balance for their storage. And that condition is usually true for a new user who just got onboarded onto Near. And what those things allow us to do is to reimagine the onboarding experience for users coming to Near. So the new flow looks as follows. A new user learns about the application they're interested in, maybe on some forum, maybe through a friend, and then they decide to give it a try. They go there directly, and through this biometric authentication, a key is generated locally for them. And that key is used as their account on Near. After that, the application can basically pay for the usage of the application as part of the user acquisition cost through meta-transactions. And since the user don't really have to maintain any Near on their account, they can start using that account that they just created right away with that application. And while this is already good for onboarding onto a specific app, compared to Web 2, the advantage here is that you only need to create this account once, and you can take your identity with you when you go browse other apps in the Near ecosystem. So that's what we think the blockchain operating system can bring to us and how the protocol can support us in terms of onboarding. But that's not the end of it. There are a lot of more things we want to do on the protocol level to make sure we can best support the blockchain operating system. So due to the time constraint, I'm not going to go to the details of the roadmap itself. But basically, there's two parts to the roadmap, experience and core. Experience basically describes what the protocol can do to unlock untapped potentials for onboarding users and developers. And core means more like the fundamentals of the protocol, such as security, scalability, and decentralization. And while that's probably too small, and also we're running out of time, I do want to highlight a few key features that we're thinking about building in the very near future. So the first one is account extensions. Today, every account on Near can have at most one smart contract, and it brings a problem with composability of the smart contract themselves. So let's say you take a look at the multi-sig contract on Near and also the proxy contract, and you want to combine them into one and deploy on your account so that your account can have more customized control than what is offered in those libraries. Today, the way to do it is pretty much you need to write a new smart contract yourself. You have to deploy that yourself. That is not only time-consuming, but also expensive in terms of the storage cost. And what an account extension allows us to do is to allow us to have a lot of global contract modules that you can directly invoke inside your account, and they will just compose them together right away. It will significantly reduce the cost of managing accounts through those contracts that I just talked about. And in addition to account extensions, another interesting thing that we're thinking about is to scale smart contracts themselves. Today, even though Near is very well known for sharding, for scalability, the fact is that smart contract cannot take full leverage of Near's sharding design, because a smart contract, each of them only reside on one shard. And if you have a very popular smart contract, let's say the Near Discovery smart contract gets to 100 million users, then the developers of that contract pretty much have to think about how to make sure that they can shard the smart contract in a manual way to avoid congestion on a single shard. And that is not a great experience, and may also cause problem for other users as well. So we're thinking about how we can provide primitives to allow developers to easily shard their smart contract when there's need to do so. The idea is that the smart contract would be kind of deployed on every single shard, and the data will be stored on user account so that the smart contract can take full advantage of Near's sharding model. And finally, while Near's asynchronous execution model enables us to do a lot of the scaling, and a lot of our success can be attributed to that, we do understand that for some developers, especially DeFi developers, having the ability to compose things synchronously is a great advantage to make things easier to do and also safer to do. So those are some of the things that we're looking into in terms of implementation in the future. And that is a lot about the blockchain operating systems and the protocol. And I think I want to leave the talk with this message that you can try the BOS for yourself. If you're staying for the hackathon, please try the proximity gateway, BOS.gg this weekend. And yeah, that's it for my talk. Thanks.